If you tried to watch the previous video, I have no idea why it had that terrible feedback loop, and so I apologize for that. In the meantime, I'm just going to take it from the top and talk about what we came to talk about today, which is the shape of creative conversations. Episode 1 and 2, we talked about why we come together, which is really, in my view, to open, explore, and hopefully close on a topic. And for those sharp viewers at home, that may look a lot like the UK Design Council's double diamond of discover, describe, develop, and deliver. I think conversations about what to make together follow the shape of design. They are a creative act of opening, exploring, and closing, of discovering, describing, and then hopefully leaving with some delivery. Really, this is the process of everyone's got all these different goals in their head, and the process of how do we get people from these implicit goals to a set of explicit, shared goals, one big goal, right? How do we get there? And beyond just having that shared goal, how do we then align on like action? Like, let's all get running in the same direction. I think that's what we all want. I'm a big fan of getting people all in one direction. And so earlier this week, I wrote an article on Medium, which I'll try to share in the link here in the comments later, where I talked about just some of the things I've learned about the mechanics of just a regular conversation, and that has to do with the interface, which is sometimes air, but we're going to dig in future weeks about how to change the interface when it's digital, when you want to use a whiteboard or paper. It changes the conversation. Turn taking is really easy to see when it's just you and me having a conversation. The thread, the narrative that ties together is also easy to see. With group conversations, it's more complex. And when things get broke, there's ways that we repair conversation. So I'm going to be digging into like how we manage turn taking in this thinking together process. And this is just sort of a first stab at this. And I feel like the sort of the general default way of doing this is like, hey, let's hire a facilitator. Let's appoint a facilitator, someone to just manage process instead of content. They call on people, they manage the difficult people, they make sure that nobody talks too much, they make sure everyone is heard. It's a lot of work for one person to do. And honestly, for small teams, it's a lot to sacrifice one person, I think, just for that role. It's risky. And so you could do something like pretend you're Lord of the Flies and give people the conch or the talking stick. This can really democratize the conversation pattern, actually, because whoever's speaking gets to give the conch to the next person. You have to request it in order to get it. So this is a pretty standard conversation mode. Like you can point-to-point conversation. And even more common is just, hey, let's everyone go around. Let's each person share. Now, this is great because it makes sure everyone speaks. It can definitely eliminate over-talkers. But the person who goes last has got a lot to deal with, has thought a lot for a long time about all the things that they might be saying. Maybe the first person who went wasn't ready and they wanted to think a little bit more. And so going all around is a great conversation mode, but it's not perfect. And so really what we're talking about here is just putting some more tools in our toolbox about how to manage that thinking together process. And so in ideation, this is a really popular way of doing things. Popcorn. When the spirit moves you, when the heat and the steam have an idea burst forth, you say it. You speak when you're ready. In some modes of popcorn, speaking like my friend Matthias when he talks about this, you only pop once, and you pop when you're ready. But if you watched episode 1, you'll know that the issue is that whoever speaks first sets the tone. The first speaker syndrome, the first popcorn that pops, the first person who has an idea, the first person who sort of like says, oh, that won't work, or hey, what about this? That really sets the tone for everything else. And so what I'm talking about here is how can we protect the introverts from the extroverts? How can we give people who want more time to think that time? And even more than that, deeper than that, how can we protect the extroverts from themselves? Like, no kidding. The extroverts, like myself, I like to think out loud. It's worth slowing things down and thinking things through before you talk. I know it's crazy. Something my dad always told me, think before you speak. Why not? And so I'm going to share two final conversation modes. They are subtly different. And for a long time, I've used this in my group dialogues. Think, pair, share. And I like this maybe because it's alliterative, and I like the catchy alliterativeness of it. But for me, it really is like a little checkbox of open, explore, and getting towards a close. Thinking is great because if you ask a group a question, you set people a question, and you say, hey, for 2 minutes, write down 3 ideas, or for 5 minutes, journal about this, or sketch a storyboard about that. I'm going to dig into this a lot more in the next couple of weeks, but this thinking does a couple of things. One, it gives the introverts time to think. It gives the extroverts time to concretize their thinking and not infect other people. It also gives you, if you happen to be the facilitator, time to take a deep breath and manage your emotions and take a step away. And so thinking does just everybody a service. And then the pair, what's interesting about the pair is that I think people would normally just go into the popcorn mode. Going into the popcorn mode just goes back into the default of whoever feels comfortable speaking first speaks first. Pairing gives somebody an opportunity to get some empathy, to dig in, to see somebody else's thoughts. And then it's up to you to decide how you want to share that with the group. Then you can do an around the robin with a set of pairs, or do popcorn with pairs, or do a conch with pairs, or point at people with pairs. But at that point, there's energy in the room that's come from inside the people, not just from you. And so the think, pair, share is a really, really powerful way of getting people going under their own steam. Even more thorough, I guess, maybe like this is like a spectrum of totally undesigned to very, very highly designed. This is the 1, 2, 4 all structure. And this comes from a book called Liberated Structures. I was first introduced to this by Mark Rettig. This is actually pretty similar to, and I'll try to link to this as well, the 5, 10, 20 Sketchstorm template that I have up on the site. I hadn't called it 1, 2, 4 all, but this is something I run a lot, and so I really love it because it matched one of my mental models, which is it's think, pair, and then the share is still yet limited. It's shared in a smaller group. That group is then asked to explore and find commonalities, and then when it gets into the all, then there's more consolidation. And so if we follow this open, explore, close arc of conversations, the think, pair, share, and 1, 2, 4 all really give us an opportunity to manage this open, explore, and close, and to shape the conversation, I think, a lot more creatively because we get more out there, more people there's more material that is more independently generated and gives you just a much richer set of data to work with, and a lot more energy in the room that is not coming from you as the facilitator, especially if you want a group to be able to sort of manage themselves. So that's it for now. Thank you so much for tuning in for episode 3, and tune in next week for episode 4.